Boom, boom, boom.
Yo.
Hey,
Here we go.
it's good to be back, baby.
Yeah, man.
What's up,
I
everybody?
feel like, what did I miss like a week ago? I feel like I've missed this show for a month, but it's only been one time.
2 weeks you missed.
Did I miss 2 weeks in a row?
No, 2 weeks ago you missed, and then last week we just didn't have one.
That's right, man. Yeah.
It's my
It almost
vacation.
feels like we were giving up. You know
Never.
what I mean?
We ain't
Never
giving up
did.
yet.
The vine
Yeah.
is strong over here.
Dude,
It is,
Mike.
man.
All right, Mike, I gotta know. What the heck happened to the unicorn behind you that was in that intro? Is it still back there?
Where'd my
'Cause
unicorn go?
You need a unicorn behind you. I feel that unicorn was your spirit animal.
I got
Yeah.
little bluey action.
You still got a gerbil in that thing behind you?
Yeah, I got the hamster
Yeah,
back
'cause
there.
I didn't know if it was still alive, if y'all were feeding it, or did you forget?
Didn't it have babies or something?
We lost one, man. Not a good
What?
discussion with the little one. That was a
Oh.
tough discussion.
Can't talk about that on the show.
Oh. Little rest in peace under the palm tree in the backyard. Say
Oh,
your prayers.
You buried it and everything?
Mm.
Rest in peace under a palm tree. That sounds like the best
Yeah.
place to rest.
Yeah, right. So we had we bought
Jennifer
one.
said you could have sent it to her. She could have fed it to her snake.
Ooh.
And
So
then
we
you could have taught your daughter about the circle of life.
The circle of life was tough. That discussion was difficult, bro. I had to buy
Yeah.
a bunch of Pokemon cards today. You know, I was like, listen, you're going through a lot, honey. Let's take you to Walmart and get some Pokemon cards. She was like, all right, that sounds good.
Yeah.
But we bought one and then we got 7,
Dude, that's a heck of a deal.
right? It's like a
Buy one,
buy
get
one,
seven.
get one free.
Buy one, get 6 free
Yeah.
or 7 free.
Dude, I was like changing the bedding out like every two minutes back here. It started smelling like a freaking pet shop.
Oh,
So anyway, we gave a few back, and
we
they
get hold on.
Oh, I'm
Before
sorry.
we get
Go
into
ahead.
the show, we got to give a shout out. So the HVAC Tactical Magazine, our girl Jennifer over here wrote us
Yeah.
up in that
Awesome.
magazine. She name dropped us. Pretty happy about that. Thank you, Jennifer, very much.
Thank you,
We
Jen.
made it, boys. We
Indeed.
made it.
Jennifer, yep, we made. I don't even have a drink here.
That was
I'm
a
slacking
cool. That was a
off.
cool mag. I was flipping through a bunch of pages. That was a cool magazine.
Yeah, I read it on my phone, and I don't know if you guys read that on your phone, but
No,
you
I
have
couldn't
to
do
kind
it.
of read it like this.
Zoom.
It won't
Zoom. It won't zoom.
It'll zoom times one.
It's a
but
one
that's it.
clicker.
It's
a
a
one
one-click
clicker.
zoom.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So-
I haven't. I read the a little bit of the what she posted on the HVA chicks, but I haven't looked up the whole article yet. So I got to
Yeah.
do that. I've been
Yeah,
on
it's good.
vacation,
Good on the laptop. Where'd you go?
somewhere nice and warm and sunny.
Right, warm.
Nice.
Yeah. I got vacation coming up like a week. I can't ready.
Nice.
I'm ready to go.
Let loose.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was
Speaking
good to get
of-
away. It's good to be back
speaking-
though too. I'm headed back to work tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll see you soon. So just kind of getting into our show news. So me
Hey,
and Eric are
wait,
headed.
you know
to
what? You know what? Wait, hold on.
Oh,
We haven't even
Wait a
done we haven't even like introduced the show.
oh, I
Oh,
didn't
We
think we had to,
derailed
man.
this. We
We made it in
derailed
the
this whole thing.
magazine, dude. We made it.
Oh, okay, never mind.
oh, okay.
All right. For those
Don't-
who are new, since you've read the magazine, so I'm Chris Hughes. That is Mr. Eric Kaiser. Cian Franco down below me, and we are the HVAC Grapevine Show. This is where we try to bring HVAC industry news. Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. Sometimes we just watch Michael get liquored up before the show and make fun of it.
That's right. That's right. It's a free show.
And sometimes that's a good time.
Occasionally, Michael brings his gerbil.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Yeah, it's not going on the wheel tonight.
That's good.
We need more
So-
subscribers. They got to thumbs it up, thumbs it down, whatever you got to do.
Nah, man, we ain't trying to get paid,
Nah.
but we'll take subscribers.
We'll take all the
In
subscribers
case one day
can
we
get.
do want to get paid from this.
Yeah,
But
we're selling sunglasses.
Yeah. So we're headed to ResNet. Where are we going, Eric? Like a week? 1 week?
Man,
we
well,
got the
okay.
ResNet
So
show?
you and I are going to ResNet, but I've got 2
Yeah.
stops to make before then.
Yeah.
Like
2
I'm headed.
stops?
Yeah, I'm headed out tomorrow. I'm headed up to the Home Performance Conference, New England. Up
Nice.
in that's on Tuesday and Wednesday of this week. Regional BPA conference.
Is Bob Vila going to be there?
I don't think so.
No, this will
Oh.
be what, Eric, your weatherization crowd at that show, I'm sure.
Yeah, that's a lot more of the weatherization crowd. There's a few HVAC contractors that are coming in there. Some of them that do some weatherization, but it's a great place for anyone to go in and actually learn a little bit about building science and how to apply it to existing houses, things like that. That's one thing I've learned spending a little bit more time with the weatherization community. Like, they know how to do the building science on the existing houses. It's just they're typically not getting paid by the homeowners. Most of the time they're getting paid by a program.
Right.
So honestly, for a contractor looking to learn how to apply some of that, it's not a bad place to start.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
for an HVAC contractor.
Well, and a lot of these companies, I think, are getting to where they're partnering with HVAC contractors, maybe even bringing them in-house. So
Some of them
weatherization does have in-house HVAC teams that are doing installs.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah,
interesting.
it's funny. It's funny you mention that. I just got one of those text messages. Hey, Mike, it's time for your AC tune-up, right? And
Oh,
I
yeah?
was like, oh yeah. I was like,
Really?
I was like, you guys need a salesman?
Yeah.
So it was.
Well, was
hard
this a
for-
text
to-
message or what are
it
we
was a-
talking about here?
It was an automated
Oh,
robot
yeah.
text message, right? And it actually, if you respond enough, it gets through to the dispatcher of this person's company. It's funny stuff. And she's
Yeah.
like, "Hey, this is Amanda. I'm trying to type through the robot right now. It's being difficult, but swing in Tuesday." I was like, "Yeah, I'll come in and talk to you. You guys need a blower door, duct
So you're
leakage
telling
guy."
me you turned a lead into a lead?
Dude, right?
What?
I like the way you say that.
That's a level of awesomeness I can't even, like, you just turned, man, think about it. You just put the twist on AI.
I flipped the AI.
Like, you
and
made
it's like,
AI your bitch. that day. You know what I
what do
mean?
you got from me?
Yeah, like we're gonna throw a robot
love
at you,
this.
and you're gonna turn it around, and you're gonna say, "Wait a minute, you
Yeah.
come from me for money, and I'm coming for
Hmm.
your sales."
That's the Italian
That's
way to do it.
amazing.
You flip it.
That's it.
I want to make some money on this.
All right,
Funny
So-
stuff, but
so we're headed to ResNet. That's the games, right?
You're headed to ResNet, but I'm going to stop it at the heat pump
You're coming
summit
to
first.
ResNet.
I'm coming to ResNet.
You're coming
okay?
to ResNet.
That's next week. That's not this coming week. Like
next week.
tomorrow, my
Well,
butt's
that's
on an
my
airplane.
next stop.
Yeah, your next stop is ResNet.
And me and Eric are going to be talking about standard 310. And so with the
Nice.
time change, with the time change, we're getting to standard time. And I thought, what a better time than to talk about standards?
That is true.
You
This
know what I
sounds
mean?
like a very
Can't
standard.
get more
this,
corny than that.
this sounds like a very standard. This is a very standard conversation here.
That's right. We're going to keep it super standard tonight. So we're going to jump into one that I know pretty freaking
We
well.
I
And
think
if
we
you-
just went down to one viewer.
Yeah. Yep.
Log out.
Yep.
These
All
guys
right,
said
so-
what?
So let's get into talking about one. And then, you know what? I'll just pull it up because I got 3 that I think people should
What?
be kind of
Hold-
somewhat aware of.
Hold on.
All
Let's
right.
back up. Let's back
All
up
right.
another step.
You got one more hold up to use what Uno reverse
Eric, you
card.
keep holding up. We're going to be half an hour into this show with no.
He's
data
got one
going
more
to the
Uno
people.
reverse card left.
Where's my Uno cards at? I got a brand new deck around here somewhere.
All right.
Let's talk about what exactly is a standard.
Let's get back to basics.
Okay. Let's talk about it.
Let's talk about that, and then I love talking about standards, but let's talk about what is a standard, because I think that's something that's almost like not well understood or maybe misunderstood in the industry.
You know, Eric, you're onto something because I heard some squabbling on the old Facebook there. What people really think when you had the dream team go in there, Chris, with 310 with you had West, you
Yeah.
had all the boys together because they were
Yeah, right.
referencing the 310 standard as if it was like a certain. So I think you're onto something, Eric. Go ahead, man.
Go ahead, Eric.
Well,
You opened
I'm
this
asking
damn
a question.
box.
Okay, here we go. We opened the
Well,
box.
that was
Right.
my Uno reverse card. Right back to you, sir.
Great. Nice. Well played, sir. Well played.
We could ask the old AI chat,
Yeah, we could. Do we have an AI chat we can share here? What
We
do
don't
got?
need ad chat. We got Mike. Dude, Mike could
that's true.
flip
We
it-
got Mike
He
here.
could
Mike
flip
could-
it on AI, man. He
Yeah,
can
that's
flip
right.
it on anybody.
All
All right. So where
here's-
does the
Siri, what
standards
is
come
a
from,
standard?
Eric? Tell us.
Okay. So a standard is a standardized way of performing typically testing in our case, right? And the way it is it's there to give us a repeatable path every time.
Dude, Adam's live. All right, bro.
All right.
Very nice. Good to see you, Adam. But what it does is it gives us a repeatable path that we can take every single time so that we can compare the results evenly.
Okay. So kind of
Now-
like when people say, "Is this up to code?" It's
Okay.
kind of like
That's a different story right there because
Yeah.
codes are minimum. That's a
minimum.
minimum, right? You can exceed a code. And technically you can go beyond a standard too, but a standard
Right.
is a path, it's a trail that we walk every time that has very defined steps.
I like that. A path.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's a path we walk, it has very defined steps, and we can repeat it. So if I repeat that same process on house A and house B, okay, or system A and system B, now a standard is not a requirement, Jason. So that's two different things. A standard is not a requirement
Mhm.
unless it is written into a code that says you must follow the standard, which is a standard path.
Right.
Yep.
I like it. I
So
like it.
there's two different things there, and that's where like we get into ACA Manual J or some of these other standards, ACA ANSI 3, ACA ResNet ANSI 310 that Chris and I are talking about. They're standardized testing paths that are repeatable because if we test the same method on house A and house B, then we can compare those results equally because we use the same process to get the results.
Same process. Yeah. Yep. If I use manual J on one house and I use it on the other, I could say I use this. Right.
I like
Yeah.
Michael
Now
House's statement there.
standards and code is a minimum, and you're going to get held to that in court. Standards, you're really only probably going to get held to that in court if they're required by code somewhere.
Right. Because then it's
Written in the code.
to the legal.
Yeah.
If they're written in the code.
Right.
Yep. And the standards are written very carefully, right? They're not. It's not like you must do this. It's like if you want to do this, this is how you would do it.
Well,
Right.
the standard says that to follow the standard, you need to do this
Right.
if you're following the standard. But unless that standard is written into a code, you're not required to follow that. Now,
Yep.
it can be a good idea to follow that standard because what it does is it provides the company that's following that standard saying, look, we're doing this every single time. So they don't have to go in and write a process for their company.
Yeah.
Right.
It's kind of like a bolt-in thing. And that's why they're used in and referenced in code requirements
Mhm.
because they're a bolt-in. That code can say, we're not going to write this whole process to go test an HVAC system or test a house or whatever else. We're going to point over here and say, you use this standard because the folks that wrote that are the experts in that field.
I would say though, in some of the standards we'll discuss tonight, I'm not going to say they're minimum, but there is some things that, depending on where you live and how you look at it, you would
Mhm.
like to see the numbers tighten up. for certain things.
Well, yeah. Oh,
But-
I completely agree. And
But remember, whoever's writing the standard, what I guess what I'm saying is what I would have liked to seen in the standard is maybe they have used like the ASHRAE climate zone map and applied different numbers according to the climate zones. I think that would have been a smart move. And I don't know why that didn't happen. That's something I'd like to bring up in one of these meetings.
well,
'Cause-
and
and I'm
here's
talking
the,
about duck leakage here.
here's the thing about standards, right? If that's an ANSI standard, right? That if it's an ANSI approved standard, that standard has to be reviewed every so many years.
Mhm.
And when it comes up for review, there's the review committee has to say one of three things. Is the standard still applicable? Yes or no? What the heck? Is the
Eric got a thumbs
There
up,
we go.
right? I didn't get no thumbs
there we
up.
go. Fix that problem. Anyway, is the standard
I want a
still
thumbs up.
applicable? Yes or no? Is it does it need to be updated, or
Right.
is it not useful anymore? You know, if it's still applicable, we keep the standard. If it needs to be updated, then it goes into the update process. Or if it's not useful or viable anymore, then it just gets pulled out of the system and it's no longer a viable standard.
So I want to answer Adam's question. So like, where can we find the standards? Like, where do we go to learn them? Going to talk about that tonight. No, I don't believe these are taught in trade school.
Some
And
of
is
them
it easy
are,
enough
most
for
of them are not.
understand? They're, in my opinion, they're getting better, closer to that.
Yeah.
So, but that's what we're here for, man. We're here to break it down for you. So, all right, let's get into standard 310. So, you know what I wanted to find out when all of these standards were written initially, and I did not have enough time to do the research on that. So, Eric, if you wanted,
Let me get my Google fingers out.
yeah, get your Google fingers working because I'm kind of curious to know that. So 310, and I'm just going to say it, like I haven't always been one digging through the standards my whole life. That's something I've had to do since coming on board at TC. But
I mean, standard 310 is fairly new.
yeah, it is. And I've done and
that
here's-
one, I think the 2020 version was the first version of that, unless I misunderstand.
I'm
it's pretty
thinking
new.
you're right.
Yeah,
So
standard 310 2020, I think, is the first version of that.
So going back to what Adam said, where do you go to get it? So this standard, which is the ANSI Resonant ACA 310, this is a standard for grading HVAC installations. Now, this is free online. You can go online, type in standard 310, and you can literally pull down this entire standard and download it for free.
Yep.
And
Nice.
read through it. So this is doesn't cost you anything kind of thing. Now, this standard, I'll pull up a screenshot for those who have not heard anything about this standard. What is the purpose of this standard? I like this picture they did with this standard. So this standard has like the 5-step process, right? You've got a design review, which is the design of the house, where you basically, let's say you have a set of prints, the window R value, window U values, solar heat gain coefficients, R values of the insulation of the walls, the ceiling, the drill, the whole thing. There's a checklist basically where you have to enter all that information. Now, what I'm talking about is, I believe it was ResNet who created the tool. There's a standard 310 Excel spreadsheet tool that goes along with the standard that you could download for free as well.
So this is
That
what all the
tool-
ResNet guys are doing. This
This
workflow.
is what the ResNet guy. Well, this is not what the ResNet guys are doing necessarily. There is
Wow.
some ResNet guys who are doing it right now, and there's a lot of money from like the IRA that's being allocated to people who want to go train for this to teach the ResNet community raiders how to do this.
Huh.
So they're not quite doing it yet. from what I understand. There's some, but there's not this major adoption going on.
The IRA.
That-
What do you mean? What do you mean from Ireland? What's going on? It's
All that
overseas
federal
money coming in.
So hear me out.
All right.
The big reason me and Eric are having a class on this is to
Mhm.
go try to teach this to the Raider community, mostly probably
Wow.
about 4 and 5, where we're going to get into watt draw and refrigerant charge, because our background's HVAC, their
Right.
background's more building science. And from what I've heard, number 5 is kind of like the, like, well, I don't know what's up with this. You know what I'm saying? They're dealing with refrigerant, and we're teaching
right.
like the non-invasive method. And so we're going to be beating that pretty hard to try to get them up to speed to want to do this.
So IRA is Inflation Reduction Act,
Okay.
Yep.
not the other IRA from
Not the
Ireland.
Irish. Okay.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
not the Irish IRA, the inflation IRA.
Yeah. So there's
Got
an
some
Excel tool
similarities.
that goes with it. So I really like this standard because this standard has it's got a tool that goes with it. It's got a workflow, a clean workflow you can look at. I would say the total duct leakage grading scale, I think, could be played a little bit differently. Like if I get the chance to sit on the committee for this for a review, I'd like to have a deeper conversation about, and we're trying to make things simple, right? That way people want to do it. But I would almost like to have a discussion, and maybe I just haven't done quite enough homework, but I feel
Well,
like
shoot
the
it to me.
numbers
What-
could be a little bit tighter.
A normal duct leakage test from new construction here is like, what is it? 4 CFM per 100 square foot.
Well, the
That sound right?
IECC current new code standards for CFM of leakage for 100 square foot.
Okay.
So I don't know. I see an opportunity where we could.
You want to go tighter,
People-
looser? What do you want to go?
No, I want to go. Always want to get as tight as I can, but this is where it gets like debatable. I threw this out in the chat one day and I got lit up for it, but I'll just say it again. If you make the requirements of duct leakage tight enough to where if you put your air conditioner install in the unconditioned space, eventually people will just stop doing the shit and they'll put it in the conditioned space because they'll be like, oh my God, this is impossible to pass.
Oh,
And
right.
I
Yep.
see that as a really good way to force the builder to start saying, hey, just put it in the conditioned space. Let's be
Dude,
done with this. And
I'm
I'll be
seeing
like,
it.
oh,
It's
when?
working, bro.
When?
I'm seeing it.
You know?
Yeah.
So if you keep tightening it up, if you tighten it up to the point where when you put it out of the conditioned space, it encourages people not to put it in the unconditioned space. So that's all I'm saying.
So
I
you're-
think there could
I've
be
seen that.
You're actually
No,
seeing
that's-
that happen, Mike?
Yeah. Yeah.
really.
And I've been talking to some builders and when things pop up, I'm like, well, I think it was 2 years ago. We even got a duct leakage. I'm looking for the word is geez. Sorry. You don't even have to do a duct leakage test if you have a spray
Oh.
foamatic. It's like I forget.
What?
Yeah, well, you used to not have to do that. In IECC previously, if your ducts were all in the conditioned space, you did not have to do a duct
Right.
leakage test. That's
'Cause it's-
since changed.
And
Now-
it's basically in the living space. So if it leaked, what does it matter, right? So I don't know why they changed
That's
it back.
debatable. So they changed it back to 8 CFM per 100 square foot, I do believe, is the standard
Wow.
now if it's in the conditioned space.
Okay.
And I think the biggest reasoning for that, there's two things I could say to that. One, let's say you have an install where you've got hot water heater that could be backdrafted from duct leakage. That's a possibility, right?
Oh,
so
okay.
there's a reason to tighten up ductwork. Two is delivered airflow into the individual spaces. Let's say you're working on a
Sure.
low load home and you're trying to get the right amount of air to each room and you got a huge attic, let's say that's foamed.
Totally
If
makes
you're blowing
sense.
air in that conditioned attic and it spreads, I think some people would debate that the air going into the attic will reduce the load marginally across all the spaces and you'd be okay. I would probably debate that as
Right.
not the right way to think about it. I think you'd want to get
Right.
the air to the space and call it done rather
Right.
than try to play the other game. Because when you're
Well-
dealing with,
And here's the thing too,
All that
like
volume.
if you're running ductwork through say interstitial spaces, like
Interstitial.
in between your floor and your ceiling on a 2-story house.
Yep.
You're running your ductwork out in that, and it's leaking inside of that.
It's
What
very
kind of-
similar.
What kind of pressure differential? What kind of pressure differential do you start creating in that house and in those spaces? And then you got to call in Genry to figure out what in the blazes is going on in that daggone house.
That's
Yep.
right.
You
And
know,
it starts
the Genry's
pushing
in the
cold
house.
air out that subfloor.
yeah,
Out towards a garage. I've seen that happen.
yeah.
You're causing condensation pressures that
I mean,
yeah.
I found that out on one of my old house. We were, I was looking around. I got my first thermal camera, you know, and I'm walking around the house going, "Hey,
Yeah.
cool!" And I look up on the ceiling, and there's this giant blue spot right in the middle of the ceiling,
Right.
and I'm like, "What the crap?"
But you know what? I'm torn, dude. Because I do duct leakage, right? So you figure out before doing the test, but then I'm liking the way it's incentivizing a builder to bring all his ductwork inside a conditioned space.
Oh, 100%.
And it was nice. It was like, okay, the builder got a little bit of a, little pat on the back. Here you go. You don't have to do a duct leakage test.
Yeah.
Let's
Well, I mean,
let's keep it
California,
like that,
California is their standards are really forcing people to put
build in other states. You mean? Was that?
duct leakage, or they're
Oh.
forcing people to put the ducts in conditioned space because of their energy codes.
Right.
Man, what do we got? A legend and a unicorn in the chat tonight.
Yeah,
Nice.
sounds like it.
Nice. Got I
Nice.
gotta
Doc
find my
Pump-
unit. I gotta find my unit.
Doc Comfort the legend, and Michael House the unicorn.
So here's what I'm gonna say. If you want to, I'm just gonna throw this out there, throw in a bone. If you want to learn about 310, and when I first came to EC, and my boss was like, "Hey, I want you to dig into this 310 standard hardcore,"
Right.
and I said, "Okay." You know what I did? I went to YouTube. You know what I found? Nothing. And I was like, well, YouTube's today's college. And that is literally where I got the idea of like, dang, we should build a 310 video. Like, there's no content on this.
and it
Like,
kicked
there
ass.
needs to be a tutorial video. So there is a 310 tutorial video that Aka hosts. I'm just saying, it's a really good video. Check it out. I do. So I'll recap.
Who
and
is the
just finish.
producer? Who is the producer of that video? Just for the
Yours
record.
truly, man.
Okay,
Yours
all right, I
truly.
thought
And
so.
if you ask
Big
anybody
views,
who's
man.
ever done video content with me, I am freaking ruthless. So if you're like, oh shit, I want to do some content with Chris, all I'm gonna say is be ready, because I may look like Mr. Nice Guy on this show, but if we do filming, your ass will be like in check. If you don't believe me, ask Dustin Cole or Cody Brazil. I'm like, action items. I'm like, what are you doing? Stop what you're doing. All right,
Yeah.
go.
Dustin called me. He's like, yeah, he smokes a big cigar. He's putting a cigar out in my
Yeah.
hand.
That's right.
Oh,
Yeah. What are you doing right now? You're wasting my time clock. We got stuff to do. All right.
ruthless.
So standard 310's a pretty awesome standard, I think. It's a great process to follow to get the basics taken care of. But
for
let's be
grading
honest.
for grading an HVAC system.
Right. But it doesn't go all the way. And not necessarily every single time in the world. Let's say you don't have homeowners that let you take it all the way, but you want to do high performance HVAC. I'm going to take you to standard number 2. Are you ready?
Number
Whoa.
2.
Number 2.
Those
Now I dropped a little secret there. So I'm curious if any of you guys know what's up. Right? All right, here we go.
Standard number 2.
Standard number 2. Coming from a different sandbox.
which
We've
which
got-
sandbox is this?
This is ASHRAE 221. Okay. So this standard,
Wait a minute, that's standard 221, not standard 2.
yeah, right. This is number 2 of the show.
Okay.
I'm like, wow, we're going all the way back to the standard 2, 1952.
Here's what I'm gonna say.
You had me all confused there. I'm like, what's it says 221, not 2?
All right, so to hit the basics on this, this is a standard that ASHRAE is housing, right? And so you have to pay for it. So if
Yep.
you want to read this standard, I believe it's like $75 to buy the standard and pull it down, so you have your own
Wow.
copy.
Yeah.
So, right, so that's how you get it, right? You can go to ASHRAE's website. I'm not sure, go download it from them.
Can I go to ASHRAE's headquarters and print it out there?
if you go to an event, I believe they'll have it. They might have it printed out. They might not. They print some of them out, but I don't know if they have. I'm still kind of new in that circle, so I'm not sure how they do it. But
They'll-
I've been
they'll
in the room
print-
where you get your badge and they print a bunch of them out. But
They'll print it and mail it to you. I don't know if you can buy it. They might have some of them printed in on site.
Why would you want a hard copy though? I'm just curious because if you
You
can get a
never
digital
know the way
copy-
this AI is gonna go, bro.
I gotta say, some of these standards and things like this, I really like to have a hard copy because I can go in and highlight stuff and make notes in the margins.
I stopped getting movies
No.
and Blu-ray, and then bam, Netflix sells half of my funny comedies. You got to go hard copy.
I don't
I'm
know,
going
man.
back.
I like my digital copy. I like my word search capability of it. So,
That's it. All my home videos are on VHS, bro.
Yeah.
so
Now, so you asked me to look back. Now, this one is also 2/21/2020 is also the first
release.
release of this one, and this
Wow.
standard was actually written largely by NCI for
Yes.
ASHRAE.
Yep.
Rob
Yeah.
Falk, the late Rob Falk, and NCI had a lot to do with this standard and with writing this standard.
2020 was
so-
a big year.
Yeah. So
Now that was, I mean, that it takes a lot of years to write these standards. Like that wasn't just something that they sat down and wrote overnight.
This was a 4-year effort.
Yeah.
From what I
Wow.
read.
Yeah.
Yep. So, and to believe it or not, this standard basically kind of goes over 3 field testing methods you can do in the field on equipment. And those testing methods came from NCI. So NCI literally shared their secret sauce with the world through the standard, like because they could have
Wow.
kept it withheld, right, and made it just all indigenous to them, but they literally made it into the standard. The standard's kind of, you have to buy the standard, but it's public knowledge.
I would have
Which
told
I
him,
thought was
come to
pretty
a
nice.
class, bro.
So
That's what I would have told him.
now, I made some couple notes about that. So some interesting things about this standard, right there. And this standard's all about rating equipment, right?
Mhm.
So like you have equipment that comes rated, and this has been a huge debate, like especially recently with SEER 2 coming out. So like equipment would come out, it would have SEER ratings, and then people would complain, when they test it out, be like, how come I can't ever get the equipment to test out like the paperwork says it should produce in capacity or whatever? That's because, you've got equipment that will test out in a lab, and then NCI is big about saying, well, there's the equipment, and then there's the rest of the install, and now you put those together and you have a whole new animal, and that needs to be rated, and that needs to be rated separately than the equipment in the lab. And that's a big part of what this standard's trying to say.
Yeah.
It's like, here's a way to rate
only,
that.
the equipment is only part of a larger system. It's kind of like the HVAC system, the ducts, the equipment is only part of the larger system of the house.
Yep.
It's a
Just
component.
a piece of the puzzle. Right.
Piece of the puzzle. You got it right.
I like
that's it.
SEER 1 though. SEER 1 was great. We're like, let's test this with no ductwork. I like it.
Oh, I'm sure they had ductwork, like 3 feet on the front, 3 feet on the back.
Yeah, open. and there's your
Had
four
to put
piece,
your
bro.
had to put your probe somewhere, bro.
Right,
Five piece-
Eric.
Five
There-
piece.
No,
Five
not on SEER 1, baby. Just a 4-piece,
So
an
so
open
the-
top.
the super
okay.
famous
All right, I
duct
got
company
you.
says
I got
Okay,
you. I got
you back.
there's equipment and then there's systems. Absolutely right. Well said, Mr. Doc Comfort.
Thanks for coming here tonight, Doc.
Yeah.
And see, Adam McCoy,
So
show up live. You could throw the questions in there, not like
Right.
lawnmower tomorrow morning.
And,
So
and then,
I'll just
and then
briefly-
there's the legend himself or the unicorn. I'm sorry, that
There
was
he
the
is.
unicorn.
So I'm gonna briefly go over the three tests. I'm not gonna tell you what they are. You have to buy the standard to get that because I don't want to get in trouble. But it does heating system performance ratio, and that's where it compares the delivered performance from the rated performance in heating mode. Then there's cooling system performance ratio, which compares the delivered performance versus the rated performance, right? And then it does installed cooling system EER. So there, you've got your rated EER, and then you got your delivered EER. And I'm not going to get into the details of how they mathematically calculate that, but I will tell you it's in the standard.
Yeah.
And another cool thing about all of these standards, I'll just throw this out there. You ever wonder how like we calculate different things? And you like think, man, how does he know? How does he know what the flow is through that? A lot of these standards have a lot of the formulas that, you know, I'm not going to say you'll like use them when you're out in the field and be like, oh, I know the answer to that because I know it. But if you're one of those people who like generally want to continue to learn your knowledge to know where some of this stuff came from, a lot of these formulas are buried inside of these standards. One of them that's pretty cool is CFM equals the opening area of a duct times 1.07 times the differential pressure in pascals. Like that formula will tell you how much airflow is moving across a hole, which is pretty cool. Like that's a pretty handy little formula to have. And that
Jenry has
formula-
that as a tattoo.
Yeah, probably so.
Jenry Garcia has a tattoo of that.
You're probably right. He probably does.
Yep.
Now, now, Chris, just to get into things,
Let's
does
get
that
into it.
does that 1.07 multiplier?
It's
vary?
not 1.08.
Yeah, that's why I said 1.07.
That's right.
Does that vary with the roughness of the whole surface?
Yeah. So I've been down this conversation once with Steve Rogers, and it was heavy. And here's what I'll tell you.
You only went once, did you?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I went
once.
one round with him, and I was like, "That's heavy right there." So, me and Jim Bergman tested this theory. I was at Jim's lab. This is when we were working on the integration with the TrueFlow, and Gary Nelson actually had just threw this formula in my brain, and I typed it in my notes on my phone. I'm like, "Dang, that's awesome!" You know, I'm gonna save that right now. And so, I was hanging out with Jim. We were trying to figure some stuff out. And he had this perfect hole that he had cut in the side of his return trunk. And he had this like electrical cover plate over it. And it was like a perfect 2-inch hole. And I said, hey, Jim, I want to test something. I was like, I want to see if I can measure the airflow across that hole. I was like, we got a TrueFlow in the return air grill. I said, let's measure the airflow with the electrical cover plate in the return on, and then let's measure it again with it off. And I'm going to see if I can physically measure the airflow across this 2-inch hole with a static pressure probe. He was kind of like, what? I was like, I just got to see if this formula works. And so we go in and I write on this chalkboard the formula. I said, I was told that formula will give me flow through a hole. I'm like, we're about to
No
figure this
way.
out. And he was stoked. He was like, oh yeah, let's do it. So we did it. So we ran the TrueFlow once and we ran it twice and we got the airflow difference.
Mhm.
And then I got the pressure across that hole and ran out that formula I just described. And dude, we were like within 3 CFM.
No
he was
way.
like,
So
"What?"
you put the pressure probe, like a static pressure probe, like right
Yeah,
by the hole?
I just went in the hole and just kind of held it there because
Yeah.
it was just open area on the other side of the hole. So it was a very easy differential pressure drop to pull.
Dude,
right?
that's crazy.
So that's when Jim
Dude,
was
you've
like,
been
"Well,
hanging out with too many smart people, bro.
dude, it
This
was
is
fun."
ridiculous.
So like Jim was like, well, that 1.07 must be the 1.08 thing, right? And I'm like, 1.08 thing, meaning that's part of the formula for the
Heat calculate.
sensible heat ratio.
Yeah.
Sensible heat formula. The 1.08 is what is it, Eric? The specific heat of air plus.
Yeah, there's several things in there. I forget.
It's 3 things in there, I think.
Yeah,
But anyway, it's just a known entity. It's like the known coefficient of the
but it
equation.
also changes because it has to do with barometric pressure because that can change with altitude too.
Right. So just a little side note, when you're using MeasureQuick, that's all being accounted for. So just a little bone to MeasureQuick there. But anyway.
No, it does not. The 1.07 and the 1.08 just happen to
the
be very similar.
1.08. No, the 1.08. The 1.07 is not the 1.08. The
Correct. That's what I was saying. Yeah.
1.07. So the 1.07 in that formula I said earlier is literally describes the characteristics of the hole itself.
Yep.
Which means like there is the coefficient of the intake of the hole, the coefficient of the exit of the hole. What's the sharpness of the hole? What's the thickness
is it a
of the
sharp
hole?
edge? Is it a rounded edge? Is it
Yeah, like
Wow.
everything that you could possibly think about about this hole is built into the 1.07.
That
And
is
so
pretty
it
cool.
fluctuates. It could be a different number. So basically, if
I
it
feel
looks
like I'm
a
smoking
standard
weed and have
hole-
no idea what you guys are talking about.
Now,
Yeah.
down on
No.
the bottom, right? I had to highlight that because it's perfect in this discussion right now, right? Thank you, House, because yes, HVAC, guys, is math. It's physics. It's science. This is a STEM trade. And if you don't know what STEM is, that's science, technology, engineering, and math.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
Welcome to STEM trade. 'Cause
Yeah.
that's what it is.
So anyway, I'm just gonna say it, man. If you haven't tried the float in a hole equation, you should save that formula, put it in your phone, and try it one day, and then share it because
And-
that's
and-
freaking cool. Because
There-
like
there-
when you do it, it's a lot of fun.
there
But you know, you gotta have a little time to waste on your hands and then do it. But here's why that's important. Okay, if you're gonna ask me, well, Chris, why is that an important formula to know? Here's what I'm
Because
gonna
of
tell you.
randomly cutting holes in the ductwork.
No, this is going to make perfect logical sense, right? Let's say you're doing a duct leakage test, total duct leakage test, and you put your static pressure probe really close to your duct blaster, like right in the supply plenum, and you got all this ductwork going everywhere, right?
Okay.
What if you got choke points in your ductwork, kinks everywhere, and you got leakage downstream? Right, and you're trying to measure that leakage, and you got different pressure drops as you get to the duct blaster.
Bro, I
You're
was
not
thinking
gonna get
about
it.
this last week when I was doing a duct leakage test,
Exactly.
and it was
So-
kind of,
So if you
I didn't know where to go with it. It was kind of ridiculous.
Well, that's
so
when
you
I
have
say,
to know the size of that choke point, and then you're saying you can calculate airflow.
you could, yeah. I mean, you could if you took a pressure measurement before the hole and after the hole and knew the size of the hole, you could calculate the flow through that hole. Is what I'm saying.
Wow,
But
that's crazy.
that's tough to do.
I'm not finding a really useful place for this though.
What I'm saying is, if you're doing a duct leakage test, this is why, like they tell you, take your static pressure probe and you go into a far supply duct run and you probe it, and you don't put it like right there next to it because you may be missing out.
Okay,
Does
gotcha.
that make sense? All right. Whew.
You guys are going deep. I feel like
It's
I
a
was
heavy
like
night, man.
having
heavy.
heavy cannabis over here. I was like, what's going on, man?
All right, so I'm gonna take you
What's
to the
going on?
next standard.
108, 107? What?
I didn't bring a shovel in here to dig myself out of this hole.
All right, standard number 3. Now this one I don't know the age of. I think I may know the age of it, but I'm
Okay,
not
we're
sure.
gonna say
Like
let's say the
2019,
third.
maybe?
Let's just say the third standard,
this
not
is the
standard
third
number
standard.
3. There we go.
Right.
Man.
So Doug says, send me the formula. I got you, Doug. All right. So the third standard that we're going to talk about tonight is one that I'm not going to say like I'm intimately familiar with, but this is standard 380 is how it's referred to. And this is where we start, we get a standard that really starts spitting out those blower door formulas you guys may want to read about. So if you're ever curious of like, man, what is CFM 50? What do they mean by, converting that to ACH 50 and all that? All of that will probably be well explained in this standard. This is
nice.
also a free standard that you can download straight from the internet. So if you download standard 380, it'll pull down and you will have it. So another little tidbit there. This one doesn't cost you anything.
How many pages are we looking at over there?
It's probably 50 something pages if I had to
Oh.
say.
Nice.
And the one thing I would say about this standard that briefly getting into it, there's not a lot of there's no workflow kind of like 310 has. I like 310 has that workflow layout, to summarize it.
Right.
That's pretty cool. This standard doesn't quite have that. I think that's my opinion, that would be, if it can be done, that'd be a great addition to a lot of these standards.
You could bring it up at the meeting.
Yeah, there you go. Everybody needs a summarized illustration of now it depends on the type of standard though. And this is something, Eric, I want you to talk about because you do a good job doing this, but you should, at the end of this, tell them the difference between the types of standards at ASHRAE. You got Yeah, you know where I'm going with that.
Oh,
He's like, oh,
dude, I don't know about that. You may have to cover that one
All right.
because you know where you want to go with that. I'm not sure.
Well, I'm just saying
I'm not
there's.
sure where you're going with that.
All right, just remind me.
All right.
So this one's, like I said, not intimately familiar with, but it's a good standard. I'm assuming this came out maybe around 2008, somewhere maybe before that. I'm not sure. And
I think 380. I think I can go back to 2016 on it.
really that late.
Yeah.
Dang. Okay, so I remember when I got my first blower door, and I want to say that was, maybe 2010, something like that. I don't know. But that's when like that first big push of money that was coming down the pipe. And code had just changed in Baton Rouge, Louisiana to require blower door and duct leakage testing strictly in the main city of Baton Rouge. All of the surrounding areas were not adopting it, but the talk was they were gonna. So like I got ahead of it, bought all my gear, started testing in Baton Rouge, and started to spread the word and do more testing in the outer areas as the different towns and municipalities started to adhere to the code. But I figured that's kind of when this kicked off, because this is kind of the standard that kind of set the bar, right? To like, I'm assuming this was a big kickoff play. This is when like a lot more blower door testing was happening, a lot more duct leakage testing was happening.
So yeah, 2016 was the first issue of 380, and that's in partnership with ResNet and ICC, which is the International Code Council. That was the first publication of 380. Now, they did have some other standards before then, I believe, on how to do that, but it wasn't this same number.
Yeah. So this one, just to kind of go in a little detail about what it's doing, right? This is about testing, of course, building leakage, right? Blower door, like this is the big takeaway is like this is your blower door standard right here.
gotcha.
But it also does get into ventilation. So people who are with this is popular with the ResNet community, right? They do a lot of this standard right here. They're doing the building test, blower door test. They're also doing the ventilation, which I think there's need for improvement on how to test ventilation. I think that's a doozy. I've talked to some people recently about like ERVs and taking the pressure drop across ERVs. I don't have a ton of experience in those, but I've heard that the pressure drop across the cores isn't all what it's cut out to be.
Oh, wow,
It's not
really?
super accurate. That's just what I've heard.
Well, it's kind of like pressure drop across an evaporator coil in ductwork, right? There's a few it depends in there.
Ooh.
Yeah.
And we know if you watch this show before, you know how much Chris loves those two words,
I don't like it.
don't
especially
depends.
when they are used together.
Doesn't like that word or the diaper.
Yeah. So
I think Chris's answer is it depends is a pretty shitty answer.
it depends is not what you should say to anybody ever.
You
I
should
don't like
always say it and then follow it up with a good explanation.
Yeah. I'm okay if you follow it up and give me the
Yeah.
reason you said it depends, and not a fluff and filler speech. Like really give me the meat and potatoes of the
I'm with that.
conversation.
I'm with that.
Then
I can
I'll
agree
let it
to
slide.
Or
But anyway.
offer some resources to
Yeah,
say
to further it on.
here's why
Explain why it's so difficult. Yeah.
So this
Might have
let
to
me
write a
let me
book.
get this piece out. So
All
like
right, yeah.
this right. So they're testing ventilation.
Mhm.
But what I thought was crazy is at the end of this standard, or in the beginning of this standard, it talks about measuring airflow through through total system airflow. And I'm thinking, well, damn, like, why did we create 310 if 380 was going to get into total system airflow?
Right.
And then I got into it, and it doesn't have hardly any information on total system airflow. It basically
how to
says
actually do it.
nothing. It says refer to this other standard. I was like, what? I was like,
What
how
the
do you
heck?
say that in the top of the standard and then at the end of the standard say that? I don't know.
Well, and that's
I
where
thought that
a
was
lot of these standards start stacking on top of each other. They become layers. If one, again, they're writing a standard where they're not the expert, they're going to refer to another standard, or they're going to refer to a testing protocol perhaps as well.
Right. Or maybe
Yeah.
this was the science to back the other standard,
Yeah.
right? It's like
So-
you need to check total airflow, even though you don't have anything to test it. But this
Yeah,
is how it should be done.
All in all, I don't know if they just weren't trying to encourage that in the standard. I'm not really sure.
They were
Like,
encouraging Steve Rogers to make the true flow grid. That's
Well,
what they
I
were
know
doing.
a few people. I was reading into the people who helped write that standard, and one of them's a friend of mine. So I'm going to reach out to him and ask him, like, "Hey, why was total system airflow just kind of like left to the wayside, on that standard?" But anyway, so that is the 3 standards that I think that if you're in HVAC, you should probably download, have on your computer, and use it as a source of reference. If you ever want to know, like we mentioned something, you don't know a lot about that topic, you want to read more of it, those 3 probably have the layers that you're looking to get into, and the information, the formulas, it's all buried in there.
I'm going to throw
Sorry,
those
man.
around like big words that people don't understand. If somebody gives me a problem, I was like, well, then you should have used the 310 then. And they'll be like,
Yeah.
oh,
Now
okay.
this is, I think this is a really important statement here too. The standards should work together. They shouldn't be overlapping. They should work as that sandwich, right?
Okay.
Yeah. So,
Yeah, because
All right,
one
so-
comes to replace the other, you're saying?
Well, they should work together. Like one should handle this piece of it, one should handle this piece of it, and they should point to each other.
Okay.
They shouldn't necessarily, you shouldn't have 2 standards that are saying essentially the same thing or covering the same topic, because then they compete with each other and they can give information that disagrees depending on where they're at in iteration or who's writing them.
and I
Let me
think
ask you this
I think
question,
310 and
Chris.
380 did that, because 310 doesn't it doesn't get into like to go do a blower door test. It's kind of like saying, hey, pull your information from 380 and fill in this block. Well, at the end, 380 doesn't get into total system airflow well, nor amps or refrigerant charge. So like 310, I feels like the extended version of like getting into the air conditioner after you've done the building. So
Yeah.
those 2 standards complement each other very well.
Yeah, and probably 380 needs to point to 310.
Yes, agreed.
But 310 wasn't written during the last update of 380.
Correct. And I agree with you. What needs to happen now is I think 380 at the end in the airflow discussion needs to say, hey, go to standard 310 to know how to do this part. Because I think where it's pointing to now is not the better place now that 310's out.
Yeah.
All right. So, Mike, you had a question, and then I was going to try to conquer the conversation about the standards.
Oh, right. Well, I mean, it in my blower door and my duct leakage test are the same device, but they have. I noticed they had like an option for ResNet and then certain different tests. I normally just go to the basic. So, I mean, are they any different?
You mean
Surprisingly,
like-
I've never picked them. I don't know
I
why.
see what you're saying. Yeah. So it depends on what standard you have to pass, right? So there
Right.
is like if you do there's the IECC, and it has its duct leakage standards. So
Okay.
you could be on the IECC 2021. You could be at a neighboring community that's on the IECC 2019. You could be
Right.
on the 2016. And so like the 2 companies that make blower doors and duct leakage tools that everybody knows will write into our gauges the ability to select the different tests, so you don't have to go find all that information for you. So that's kind of like
for some reason I
just
I never clicked on it when I was doing a test.
Yeah, so like we'll try to do that homework for you. Like that's a big part of our role, is to go try to keep up with some of that, to build it into the gauges. That's where, like, if you're not updating your gauges, you should be, because
Right.
the updates are going to have all of that stuff coming into it whenever you update your gauges.
That's cool.
Yep. So that's kind of
I do not know why I have not clicked on it when I was doing Even like my house, I've done my house probably like 8 times.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say, in my opinion, talking to the community that does a lot of this, is it's really hard to get people to want to do the software portion of the test. And
Mhm.
I'm going to say this is just everyone in the industry, uh, manufacturers, and I'm sitting on their side of the table now. Like, we would love to see people use the software side of our tools, meaning like, hey, select the 380 test, run the multi-point blower door, let the gauge do all the work for you. But
Right.
there's a humongous part of the industry that doesn't want to do that. Like, and I'm not saying they don't. It's this, like, they're so used to it. They're so used to like mechanically doing everything and setting everything that
Right.
they're just like stuck with it. And it's like
Yeah.
this battle to try to like want to encourage them to let a lot of this stuff do it for you, because it will. But I get it. You get used to something. It's just you get used to it and you just know your game, right?
Well, and the
Yeah,
other
You
thing
roll.
is, I think a lot of people are maybe a little bit afraid of, like, when they see that, say,
Yeah.
Yeah.
they say, oh, a 310 test or a 380 test or whatever in that tool. They're like, well, I don't know what that means, so
Yeah.
I'm not going to run that.
That's it, bro. That's
I'm out.
never clicked on. I was like,
Yeah.
nope, just regular single
I
point blower
totally
door.
get it, bro. I
Just
totally get it.
don't press
And
that
I think
button.
that's where this education has to happen, right?
Yeah.
That's
But
why
I'll
we're
tell
on
you,
here,
it's
right?
I was hanging out with a friend of mine here. He was doing a big building test. And I said, he was like, hey man, will you go with? I said, yeah, man, we're local. I'll ride over there. And
That's
he was
cool.
going to do everything manual. I said, hold
Oh,
up, bro.
really?
I said, hold up. I'm like, let me show you how cool this can get, you know? And I just ran everything from, like, we were doing a big building. So I actually got on tech log for this one. And I was like, we're going to run this bitch and I'm going to have my laptop out. I was like, and then
Yeah.
we just walk the building
It's
anywhere you
cool.
want. And I can turn it up, turn it down, whatever you want to do. And he was like,
Freaking
shit,
awesome.
that's cool. And it's like, dude, you have everything. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
You don't even have to pay for it. Like, it's
like
here.
it's like our cloud, right? Like I
Yeah.
think Joe Medosh worked on it. With who else?
Our cloud was, from what Joe Medosh told me, because I don't want to quote it, but Joe
Right.
Medosh kind of brought the idea of that to the world. Yeah.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
cool because GPS
Wrong one.
it
Oh, here we
GPS
go.
validates you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know.
So how she, if you want to ever watch Chris's head explode, just walk
Yeah,
up to him and say
House
it
knows how to get
depends
under
and
my
walk
skin,
away.
House likes to bust balls. You
It's
know?
fun.
So,
He does.
It's a lot of fun, House.
Yeah.
Trust me.
that's why
watch
he
it.
loved when that sliding glass door in Orlando would beep. You know.
All right, so
Shut the
let's go
door.
back to the standards. So there's different types of standards, right? And I'm still trying to wrap my head around all of them that are out there. But it's interesting. It's like, from what I see, there's ANSI, which, let's get into that for just a second. There's ANSI, which
Mhm.
ANSI's probably not writing any of these standards. People go to ANSI to get something like approved. They're like the
Okay.
approval community.
Let's talk about ANSI here real quick. So what is ANSI? ANSI is the American National Standards Institute, I believe, if I'm quoting that correctly.
I think you got that right.
But ANSI tells you how to write the standard and how often you need to update the standard or review the standard to make sure that it is still current or needs to be updated. They're the ones that lay that process out about how to control the standard. They don't, anything else in that standard, they don't have anything to do with. All right. So
Yep.
they're not writing the standard. They are controlling the standard and controlling its revisions and things
So they're
like
almost like the referee.
that. Basically,
Yeah.
yes. Think of
And-
them like a referee and a scorekeeper.
And
ANSI,
ANSI has rules, basically, like when these standards get reviewed every couple years, like that's an ANSI requirement.
Yes.
Like, you have to keep them
Oh,
reviewed.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's why they keep having meetings and reviewing it, making sure it stays
They
updated.
make sure the gloves are good. There's no lead in the boxing gloves.
They make sure that there's review committees that anytime a
The
a
government.
change is
The mob does.
proposed, right? Anytime a change is proposed in a standard, then it has to go out for public comment.
Oh,
Right.
really?
And it's out for so many days for public comment. And then any public comments that are made on that updated or changes to that standard must be replied to publicly.
Yeah, they go to their house and they tell them, "Shut your mouth. You know what's good for you." It'd be a shame if this place burns down. You know?
No.
So
No, they don't do
but-
that. That's somebody
no.
else, another
No, no, no,
organization,
yeah.
not ANSI.
So there's what I don't know is, ASHRAE could have standards, and
Well,
then ACA and ResNet could have standards that go
Right.
to ANSI, get approved. But how does one, like, if I wanted to write a standard, right? Like,
Right. So you'd have to talk to ANSI.
what's the protocol to be able to get? I guess anybody could just write a standard if they want to. I don't
You
know.
probably have to pay ANSI some money.
Yeah, probably so.
I'm pretty sure that they take
So-
money.
I'm
All right,
wondering
so I
if
take
there's.
that back. They do sound like the mob.
I
But
guess what I'm saying is that's
so
the
if you-
two. That's the
if
two
you write a
organizations I
standard
know.
like on a maintenance, is there like a maintenance standard out there? Does anybody have it?
Yeah, ASHRAE
Who's-
has some. Now,
ASHRAE's got it,
ASHRAE,
okay.
so like Chris was talking about, there's two different things that ASHRAE has. ASHRAE has guidelines and standards.
Okay.
Well, I was getting more towards the types of standards. And what I wanted to say was you have your standards that are ways to maybe test air conditioners in the field. That would be there's a name for it, but that's like a protocol you could follow.
Right.
But then there's standards of just like what's the word I'm looking for? We talked about this once before. They're not actionable items for like technicians in the field. Like there's all these other standards even for like manufacturers and how they should test their equipment in the lab.
Well,
before
yeah,
it would
but
go to the
it's
field.
it's
Okay.
still a standard, right? And
Right.
that's why. So ASHRAE is, of course, engineering. Like they are looking at it from end to end.
Okay.
You know,
Yeah,
they're
there was-
given standards for all kinds of different stuff. They have standards for testing filtration.
Yeah.
There's all kinds of standards that ASHRAE has, but the guidelines that they have, so they have guidelines and standards. Standards are approved by ANSI, where guidelines are not approved and they don't have a regular refresh cycle.
Oh, okay.
So they're not an ANSI stand. They're not considered an ANSI standard. They're a just a guideline. They're still come out of the same type of committees, but they don't have that regular refresh and review rate.
Yeah, I think
that,
you're beating on what I was trying to get at. But
Okay.
anyway.
Nice.
Yeah.
I mean, it's interesting
It-
stuff. It really is. I think I'm gonna throw
How
the
many
blower
people did
door
we
on the
put to
house.
sleep?
Ha ha!
I think all 13 of them are snoring now.
Yeah. That was heavy. It's fun.
Well,
though.
I'm gonna ask ChatGPT how many times we said the word standard tonight.
Yeah.
That
Quite a bit.
was a lot of standards.
This was a very standard show. There's two more.
I'm Stanley's the standard.
I'm standard out.